Hey everyone, it's Cammy. Thanks for stopping by and being my friend. If you're new here, welcome. I'm back every week with videos about the trans experience. I am once again in the purplest room that ever purpled. Hopefully the lighting is a little bit better so it doesn't look quite so stupidly purple. Also, I'm wearing sleeves, which means that summer is officially over here in Maine. And since this is my first autumn as a basic white girl, I am going to have pumpkin spice everything. And that is the last joke that you'll get for the episode because we're going to take a hard right turn into Depressionville. And we're going to talk about disassociation, depression, and grief over the loss of the person you used to be. Now, this is the third time I've shot this video, so it's already some kind of difficult subject matter for me. So if you're seeing this, then apparently I did not give up, and I kept at it. You also don't get to see the cute makeup that I had because I washed it off before I realized everything I shot was garbage. So moving on. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about what grief is, so that the whole thing can be put in context and it all starts to make a little bit more sense. Now, this is, of course, not psychiatry class or not psychology class, so this is not like textbook, whatever. So what grief is, basically, is your brain becomes accustomed to certain stimuli, certain things, like relationships or people or jobs or things like that. And when that stimulation, when that input is gone, then your brain has a hard time kind of refilling or dealing with that empty space. And that's what grief is. So we grieve all kinds of things. It's not just things that made us happy or whatever. We grieve bad relationships as much as we grieve good ones. We, of course, grieve death. That's what most people think of. We'll grieve lost jobs. We grieve all sorts of things. And the more psychological real estate that a thing took up, then the more profound that grief feels. That's why death can be such a big thing when it comes to discussing grief, because, people tend to take up a lot of space in your psyche. And that leads us to grieving the loss of the person you used to be, because that is a death. And it's not a death the way a lot of people might think of it, but it's still a death. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is my personal experiences with this and what I've been dealing with over the last few weeks, in hopes that I can express to you that if you're feeling this kind of grief, then it is normal and it's okay and you're not alone. It's difficult to discuss and talk about because there isn't really verbiage for it, not that I've been able to find. So when you have a hard time articulating a thing, then it's harder to kind of process and get through that thing. Like I spent yesterday really depressed. I've been depressed for the last few weeks, but yesterday I kind of figured out what was going on, and I was trying to explain it to my girlfriend, and I couldn't articulate it to her. I was having a really, really hard time. And it's also something that seems to be so much uniquely part of the trans experience that I didn't know how to kind of say it so that she would understand it. And that was difficult. So hopefully you know what I'm talking about. What we're grieving when I talk about the loss of the person you used to be, you're still dealing and still grieving a death of someone who was very, very close to you. At least it is for me, because the person, there's a reason we call them dead names, because that person is dead. The person is no more, and that person is not coming back. And grieving the loss of that person doesn't necessarily mean that you want that person to come back. It doesn't mean that you've perhaps made the wrong decision, that you want to detransition. I think that's the term people call it when they go back. Anyway, it doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that your brain needs to process it. you need to take the time to understand that you're not who you used to be. So what really kicked this off for me is I went through all my old clothes and I got rid of a bunch of old stuff, stuff that just wasn't mine, stuff that was Josh's. And yeah, I feel weird saying that name now. Anyway, because he's dead. He's dead and he's never coming back. And that is a weird, strange, depressing ass experience. I'm going to talk about disassociation for a second. Disassociating for me, quite often, there were obviously the bits of I would check out and I wasn't making long-term memories, and then, I'd realize it was a few months later, that sort of thing. And then I had like little recollection of what happened for several months prior. That's a cat right here, just in case you guys are wondering why the blanket suddenly has eyes occasionally. Anyway, I quite often didn't feel like an actual person. I felt fake, somehow not real. And I don't know exactly how to articulate that beyond the fact that I just didn't feel like a real person. And one of the things that I realized is that I wasn't a real person. I was some weird approximation of a person. I was half a person at best, doing my best to be a full 100% person, but not knowing what that meant. Kind of doing the best with what I had available, which was not a whole hell of a lot. And I feel like a lot of people deal with those kinds of feelings. And that's kind of what dysphoria is to a certain extent. I read a thing online that I wish I could find it again so that I could show you guys the actual quote, but it was basically saying that dysphoria was like, so everybody at a table has a glass of water, and the glass of water that you have is salt water. And nobody says anything about the water. You don't know that the water that you have is different than what everybody else is drinking. And so it's miserable and uncomfortable and terrible, but everybody else is drinking their water, and it seemed, and nobody's saying anything, nobody's complaining about it. So you keep drinking your water all while drowning and dying from drinking the wrong kind of water, but everybody else is drinking theirs. So you keep drinking yours, not realizing that the water you have is killing you because it's not what everyone else has. And that's a great description of dysphoria. It's a feeling. It's subconscious. Like, something is wrong, but you're not consciously aware of the fact that something is wrong. It's just something is wrong. So anyway, yeah, it leads to not feeling like a real person, and I certainly didn't feel like a real person. And in retrospect, I wasn't. I was, like I said, I was like half a person at best. But now I am becoming an actual person. And that's the beautiful part of all this. But that's different. That's a different topic. So I have a cat pawing around in the closet over there, so I apologize if there's any weird background noise. Anyway, so that saltwater analogy, that weird dysphoria, that it quite often, I wanted to die. Like, the reason that trans people are so suicidal is that we don't feel like real people. We're miserable constantly, and we don't know why. Everybody else is dealing with it just fine. Why can't we? Why are we so miserable having the same kind of existence that everyone else has? And it's because we're not having the same existence everyone else has. Sometimes it's important for that person to die, to transition, because for me, Josh is dead. I killed him. And it was the most positive thing that could be done. And that's what it's like for a lot of people. It's the most positive thing that can be done. So, but I still grieve his loss. He doesn't exist anymore. And it's weird. spent a lot of time yesterday just kind of crying and trying not to cry. And it's tough. It's a lot of grief. It's a lot of loss. I'm never going to look in a mirror and see him again. You know, other people are never going to be able to talk to him again. And it's anyway. I've said it's weird enough. Mostly, I just want you to know, if you're going through this, that it's normal and it's okay, and you're not alone. You're not the only person who's dealing with this sort of thing. It's a lot of people do, and if you haven't hit this stage yet, then know that it will happen and it's okay. You kind of just gotta work through it. You just kind of deal with it. I don't really have advice. This is more of a shit happens kind of episode. Shit happens, it's okay, you'll be all right, you're not alone type of episode. That's really what this one's all about, I guess. So I don't want this to be a super long video, so I will stop rambling. I made my point. We'll leave it there. You're not alone. And since we're leaving it there, I'll go into the end card bit. You can click away now if you want to. Don't click away. I love you. I want your views. If you dig what I say, then give the video a thumbs up. That helps out the channel a lot. If you think the stuff that I said can help other people, then by all means, please share on social media, Reddit, things like that. Let other people kind of see it, because that's why I make these, so that we don't feel so alone, so we can have a community of togetherness. I also have a Patreon. If you're interested in hanging out with me on Patreon and being part of the journey, it goes to this channel, the other channel, and making independent movies, which I'm actually going to be making a movie about sort of what this video is about, where I'm going to have a lengthy conversation with who I used to be. It should be interesting to see what he's up to these days. Spoiler alert, he's dead. Anyway, so right now, the anything that I get on Patreon, I'm saving up to get a new camera. So shit like this looks better and I don't have to film it 3 fucking times. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Oh, I got other videos over here, down here. You know how YouTube works. Check them out. Hey, do you want to make a little cameo? Do you want to make a cat cameo? Your brother left, so now it's your turn to make a cat cameo. Oh, you're so fat. Say meow meow. Say bye, cutie. Bye, cutie. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week. He's so mad at me now. Bye, guys.